started with Rick. Rick has killed me already a couple of times in episodes of Made in Canada. So, by way of revenge, I'm going to punch in Rick Mercer. Oh, give us back that Google here. And can you do that, Jack? It's coming. Rick, would that all be one word? Or? You're on your own. Okay. R-I-C-K. Rick. Do I? How are we doing? 93,300. Pretty good. Pretty good. Anyways, you all know him. You all love him. Rick Mercer. Hey.
Thanks, Moses. I'm actually a little freaked out about even being here because the entire notion of ideas, quite frankly, terrifies me. Also, in talking to Moses, when he said to come here, he said, you know, it's very, he didn't say touchy-feely, but, you know, the whole idea is to come out here and, well, practically free associate. And there'd be no script. And being an actor, even though I'm a writer, but being an actor, you know, you want a script. So even though, you know, some academics may say that, oh, no, it's great if you can, you know, have, if you're out there without a podium, without a script, but I'm comfortable with a script, whether it be memorized or in a teleprompter. And, you know, Moses says no teleprompters or scripts, and I think that's interesting because I always envisioned, you know, Moses would probably be the only guy who had a teleprompter actually built into his head. Just, you know, the way Moses sees the world. But it's also, you know, quite frankly, it's a little intimidating to be here this morning because this is my first Idea City and sitting in the back row watching everyone who has, you know, PhDs and stuff. And like I have an honorary high school diploma from a school for the learning disabled. Because they, you know, they literally, the kids put it to a vote and they picked me, like that's my audience, the ADHD crowd. So it's a little intimidating. But anyway, and the whole idea, so I thought maybe, I was thinking about the whole idea of ideas and the tyranny of ideas. Because also, I should mention, you know, this morning was amazing. It really was, except I never ever wanted to be in space. You know, I wanted to be on television. And, you know, in the movies, there's always the kid gazing up, right? I'm going to go to space. No, not me. But anyway, I always wanted to be on television. And one of the interesting things about television, if you're doing the type of television that I've done, is you're constantly being forced to come up with ideas. In fact, my years at 22 Minutes would start every Monday morning with what was called the Ideas Meeting. And, you know, the week just got worse from there on in. Because you're supposed to come in with an idea. And, you know, you could BS your way through it. You'd say, like, you know, oh, I'll do something on Chrétien, I suppose. You know, and the producer would write it up like, that's your idea, is it? Very good. But over the years, you know, I was on that show for 8 years, and I never in my life, I realized I never in my life ever came up with an idea that wasn't forced by a deadline. Like, you know, the whole notion of going to a beach and not working, like, I've never even, you know, I practically put two thoughts together unless there's a deadline. And in television, you're forced with, see, I'm free associating, as you can see. As in television, there's this tyranny of the blank page. And that's where it all comes from, because there's a deadline. And so I thought, you know, there's three ideas in particular that had an effect on me. One was an idea I had which came seconds before the deadline and literally saved my ass, and then big time, and became my brand. And then another idea was basically it was a good idea, but then it was taken from me. It went into the world of cyberspace and ended up kicking Stockwell Day's ass. And then the third idea, I was just something that I did that was actually, not necessarily groundbreaking, but it was completely unexpected. But I thought I'd just talk about those a little bit. And what's going on in my head these days is I'm doing a new television show. And people have been asking me lately, and my new show is going to be in January, and people have been asking me, what's your new show about? And I say, well, I don't know. Or my other answer is, I don't talk about what I'm going to do because I don't want anyone to know. So sometimes there's this perception that it's arrogance, basically, or I don't trust them. Like if Moses said, what's your new show about? And I'd say, I don't know. He'd think, little frigger, he won't tell me, right? But it's really, I don't know. Again, it's the tyranny of the blank page. And the only thing I know is when I've been in those situations in the past, I've somehow managed to fool them yet again. Come up with something. But anyway, so the idea, most people, when they see me, or when they talk to me now, they want to talk about Talking to Americans, which was a segment on 22 Minutes, and then it begat a special on CBC television. And even here at Ideas City, when the ad appears in the paper, underneath it says, so Dr. So-and-so, so-and-so split the atom. And then, so-and-so, so-and-so, building cities underwater. And then Rick Mercer talking to Americans. It's like, it just got away from me in that way. But everyone else was so prepared. Okay, but I had this idea, you see, that I'd go to Washington, D.C., and we would do sketches in Washington, D.C. Because at 22 Minutes, it was a political satire show, and we started going to Ottawa, which turned out to be great because, for starters, it was great art direction. One of the secrets of that show was we couldn't afford sets and stuff early on, but if you're standing in front of the Parliament buildings, of course, you had this great set and it cost no money. So we started going to Ottawa. Then I started thinking, I want to go to Washington. And the first thing I did in Washington was just like, hey, it's Rick in Washington. And people bought that because, hey, it's Rick in Washington. They thought, cool, look, he's at the White House. And we managed to get in the room with the president. And it was great. Didn't get to talk to the president, of course, but, there we are in the room with the president, and that's cool, and, so we get our piece. But the third time I was down there, I convinced Salter Street to send me down to this, to Washington, D.C., and of course, now the price is starting to go up a bit because it's, it's a little more expensive to get there. And I was in front of the Capitol buildings in Washington, D.C., and I had 3 ideas heading in. And I thought, this is going to be one of the most successful trips because 2 I didn't really talk about, but I thought they were going to be really good. And then the third I wasn't too sure about, but I thought it was going to be very funny. And basically they all stank. Like the first one just died, and the second one died, and the third one died. And so what happened was the actor's nightmare came true. And now all actors have the same nightmare. Have I gone 20 minutes yet? No, okay. All actors have the same nightmare. I'll speed up. All actors have the same nightmare. The same nightmare basically is that you're on stage, much like this. There's a play going on. There's a full house, much like this. But you are not prepared and you don't know what the play is. And that's your actor's nightmare. So there I was in Washington, D.C., and this trip was going into the shitter. And I was thinking, this is it. The nightmare has come true. I don't have a bloody thing to do here. And there's a camera, and there's a producer, and there's everything else. And this is it. My career has come to an end. And when that happened, I daydream. Stress, I'm just daydreaming. It's my calming mechanism. I'm gone, right? And I started thinking about a conversation I had ages earlier with Ralph Benmergui. I don't know why, but I'm just sitting there. My producer's literally going, what are you going to do? I'm not even hearing him. I'm going. So, anyway, this guy comes along at that very moment. He's a very well-dressed guy, right? And he's got the Capitol Hill big security pass on. He's walking by and he looks, and then he stops and he looks at our camera and it says, it's got the exploding arsehole, we used to call it, the CBC logo, right? And it says, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, right? So he said, oh, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. I said, yeah. And he said, what are you doing way up here? And I thought, boom, this is it. I could envision it. I thought, my next 2 years, I know what I'm doing. So, and I said, I'm here covering Prime Minister Ralph Benmergui. And he said, oh, yes. Yes, I've heard of him. And I said, well, there's a summit, you know, it's the Clinton-Benmergui summit's going on. He said, yes. So the story, right? And the story in Canada is whether it should be the Clinton-Benmergui summit, the Benmergui-Clinton summit. And he said, oh, very good. And I said, well, what should it be? And he said, oh, Clinton-Benmergui. I said, because that would be, Benmergui-Clinton, he said, because that would be polite. And I said, yes, but our prime minister is pathologically shy. And he said, oh, yes, I heard that. So the next thing you know, I'm traveling all over the city just talking to people about Prime Minister Ralph Benmergui. And I knew I had this piece. Now, the secret in television, comedy, is if something works, you beat it like a rented mule. Right? That's just, it's not glamorous, and then you don't have to come up with another idea. Right? So I just spent a lot of time traveling in the United States after that. And the new problem was constantly upping the ante and then going after governors and stuff because people were getting tired of just seeing people who work on Capitol Hill. But it was my cornflakes, you know, it was my total accident in the lab. And I'm sure if I live to 100, people are going to go, hey, talking to Americans, even though I stopped doing it a long time ago. But it was a complete fluke. So that was, you know, and it's kind of changed my life, really, because it's this big, horrible brand now. And no matter what I do, they say, are you going to do that? You know, so that was one idea that completely changed my life. Now, the second idea that changed everything was, again, the tyranny of the blank page. And this is really, I think, the one that inside the confines of a comedy show was fairly unique. And it was unique for me because we always believed in something called the 2-minute rule on 22 minutes. No sketch should go over 2 minutes. And the worst thing you could say to someone about a sketch was, well, it wasn't that funny, but it was important. And that meant, you know, that's pretty bad to be important and not funny, right? So, again, it was a week, and it was one of my worst weeks on the show, in fact, because I didn't have anything. I didn't have any ideas, really, and so there was nothing I really thought that had knocked it out of the park. And it was just before the election started in the federal election, and Stockwell Day was the new leader of the Alliance Party. And I just want to explain basically the genesis of how this happened. And it was just one of those, like I always like to think like a cab driver, you know, cab drivers who don't shut up about politics, who you don't want to be in the cab with. That's kind of my job on TV. But in short seats, only shorts, 2 minutes. So what happened that week was that it was revealed that Alliance candidates knocking door to door were promoting this idea of citizen-initiated referendums, which actually came up earlier today in one of the earlier presentations. And that if 3% of the electorate could sign a petition, then there would be this binding referendum. Now, as a piece of policy, I kind of thought it was flawed, but it started to become a story because Stockwell Day denied that it was policy. But then it was shown that it was policy, but it was policy that was supposed to be promoted on the doorsteps and not in the media. Basically, if the person answering the door seemed to be, I think, crazy, you sold them on this. But don't mention it on the news, right? I want to play the clip because, in fact, the clip was the least important part of what happened. Because I was talking to Luciano Casimiri the other day, who was a writer on 22 Minutes, and he reminded me that we went out to the Midtown Tavern after I shot this, and I said, it'll never go in because there's only 3 jokes in the whole bloody thing, and it's too long. And in fact, it almost never went in. But I'd like to play this clip for you because I thought this was as short and as succinct as this idea could be. And in fact, it wasn't even necessary because it had nothing to do with comedy, had nothing to do with the humor. It only had to do with the simple idea, which actually got, pretty well the entire country talking about this one single idea. So I'm going to play that clip for you now. My God, is it red already? No. Okay, we're going to play that clip, please.
As we all know, Canada is a land of many different types of people. However, as Canadians, I think there's one thing we can all agree on, and that's this. That Stockwell Day has lots of good ideas. I think his best idea is his proposed referendum legislation. Basically, if any group of Canadians presents a petition with 350,000 names on it, or 3% of the electorate, and the alliance forms the government, they will hold a referendum. Now, sure, critics point out that this type of legislation will tear the country apart, that it will drive the federal government into bankruptcy as we face referendum after referendum. Well, while this may be true, it does not change this simple fact that if Stockwell does it, we here at 22 Minutes would enjoy it. So in preparation for an alliance majority government, we are asking our viewers to take part in an exercise in democracy. We are asking you to sign a petition that you will find at 22minutes.com. There are 1 million Canadians watching right now. All we need is 350,000 signatures. If we make it, the 22-minute referendum will become a reality. Now, the petition simply states, we demand that the Government of Canada force Stockwell Day to change his first name to Doris. Now, anytime there's a national referendum, yes, it costs about $150 million. But I think I speak for all taxpayers when I say it's worth every penny. So please, log on now or tomorrow at work, especially if you work for the government. And let's help force Stockwell Day to change his name to Doris Day. Why, you may ask? 'Cause it'll be fun. And remember, this is not only an exercise in democracy, this is an exercise in national unity. Making Stockwell change his name to Doris Day is something we'd all enjoy. English, French, black, white, straight, gay, especially gay. And in these bitter times of national unrest, isn't it time that everyone in the country could enjoy a laugh at someone else's expense? So log on now. And together, let's put democracy back into the hands of the people.
So I just want to give you a quick rundown about how the next week went. So this piece got in and went on the show. I was lying when I was saying 1 million people were viewing, because actually at that point it was more like 800,000 people were watching. And which was still great, of course, but we weren't at the million place anymore. All the producers of the show would get together afterwards, and they would put, they would decide which pieces went in the show. And this was just one of many pieces. And the producers first argued for a long time whether or not the piece should go in the show, because it does really only have the 3 jokes. It's got Stockwell Day, Doris Day, ha ha ha, and it's got the French, English, black, white, straight, gay, especially gay. That's it, 2 jokes. And in a 3.5-minute piece. So it was kind of a bit of a crime. But anyway, they decided to put it in because they had gone through the expense of creating this website. Because when I had the idea on Wednesday, there was no website. It's true. 22minutes.com did not exist. 22 Minutes Online existed, but everyone involved in 22 Minutes hated 22 Minutes Online because it was this thing, that they did completely separate from us. And anyway, they ended up shutting it down. So there was no website. So Monday, Tuesday, I had the idea. First, they got to get a website. So they actually had good people at Salter New Media, and they said, okay, we can do this. And they set it up and had it ready to go. So they had this meeting. They decided to put it in because they've gone through the expense of setting up this website that has never existed before. Then all of the producers put $10 in a hat, and they wrote on a piece of paper how many signatures I would get on this petition. The producer who won by guessing 5,000 signatures. By Tuesday, the show aired Wednesday, right? They won. By Tuesday, there was 50,000 signatures. But then it left the television world, and people stopped talking about it as a television event. People started talking about it as a link they got in their email. And by Wednesday, it was everywhere, literally all over the planet. People were getting it like 15, 16, 17 emails. So by Wednesday, 42 people a second were signing the petition. And it was just a fluke that the people who set up the website rented this website platform, which I don't understand, that was originally set up for Walmart or something, so it could handle that, that traffic. 42 people a second. By the following Friday, when we taped the show, we pulled the plug at 1 million people. And that same Friday, Stockwell Day changed his theme song to Que Sera, Sera. And also, Environics research says that all of his soft support, which was substantial in Ontario, completely evaporated on the Friday. And they attributed it to this thing, which I don't know if that's true or not. But I think what was interesting about it was, it had nothing to do with being funny. And it had nothing to do with making Stockwell Day look like an idiot, because, that was fun too. But what I loved about it was like a perfect television moment. People say that there's no more water cooler in television, except for these reality things, but there's no event that can make everyone, talk about the same thing the next day at the water cooler. And this was truly a water cooler event in all of Canada and also anywhere Canadians were living around the world, and it had nothing to do with the television. It only had to do with the internet. And the other thing was, it was like a perfectly formed sentence. People watched this sketch, and they knew that they thought it was funny, but they also knew that it wouldn't be funny unless they went and signed the petition, for two reasons. Because they thought this idea of citizen-initiated referendums was a bad idea, because everyone could see it was really about abortion and the death penalty and stuff, but you don't talk about abortion and the death penalty in comedy shows. But people could see that's what it was about. But they also knew it would only work, and it would only be funny the following week if we reached the 350,000 signatures. So suddenly it wasn't just my sketch, it was every single person watching sketch. Because if I went on the next week and didn't talk about it, obviously I didn't get enough signatures. Or if I said only 50,000 people voted, then my point was proven wrong, that any idiot could launch a citizen-initiated referendum, and I was supposed to be the idiot to prove it. But anyway, it was a spectacular success. Of course, by the end of the week, it was the most visited website in Canadian web history. It was the most visited Canadian website up till that point. So it was this huge, phenomenal success. And immediately, of course, things started to change. People started saying, what are you going to do next? Going back to the beat it like a rented mule thing. There's no timer. It says 20 minutes still. I'm wrapping up now? Okay. Can I play one more video? 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go really fast now. So basically, beat it like a rented mule. Everyone said, okay, you got to do another petition. But I knew another petition wouldn't work because, it would just be a stupid petition. And no one would vote for it because they were actually making a point with this petition. So we actually closed the website. And then people started saying, we're going to sell the list because the list is worth a lot of money. And I was thinking, right? You're going to be getting emails from me, from Rick Mercer, right? Lengthen your, So it's hysterical. So we just closed the website down. We completely closed the website down. And then I did one more thing. About 6 months later, I came up with an idea. We were told to do a Christmas special, and in fact, or as they say on the CBC, a holiday special. And I wanted to do something sweet because I'd never done anything sweet before or nice. And I thought this will really freak people out because they'll be going, like, what's going on there? Because he's being nice all of a sudden. But, I basically want to say that this was one of the highlights of my experiences on television, and because the idea was we were just going to step back for a moment and put the spotlight on people who truly personified public service, because I was covering politics, which is supposed to be about public service, and in fact, you very, very rarely see any evidence of it, but I learned about public service not on Parliament Hill, but in Bosnia, and so we made this little video, and we opened the website once again. So this is it, you can play it now. Sorry, Moses. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to 22minutes.com. As you know, in the past, we have used the internet for evil. Now, because the holidays are approaching, we believe the time has come to use the internet for good. Now, don't worry. I promise we will use it for evil again in the future. But the fact is, the holidays are approaching. Canadians are making plans to spend time with their families. But for a lot of Canadian families, a very important family member will be absent. I'm talking about Canada's peacekeepers. If you go to our website, we will show you how you can send a holiday message to a peacekeeper this Christmas. Now, because they are so convinced that you are going to do this, they have already taken their time and made a message to send to you.
How do I know this? Well, I'm in Bosnia, and a very good friend of mine.
We're here for a good time. Not a long time. And the sun is shining. Present arms. And the sun is shining. Ooh, isn't it a pity? Send us a message.
We're enforcing the peace. The peace isn't here yet, and it's going to be a long time before the folks here are ready to do this on their own.
We're here for a good time. Not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can shine every day.
Calgary, Alberta, I'd like to say hi to all my family members.
Prince George, BC.
Atlas Royal, Nova Scotia.
Abbotsford, BC.
Belleville, Ontario.
Dildo.
Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Just want to say hi to all my loved ones.
Winnipeg. Merry Christmas, Jarrah. Inverness, Cape Breton. Whitburn, Newfoundland.
Winnipeg.
Halifax, Nova Scotia. What's up?
And the sun is shining. Happy holidays. The sun is shining. Ooh, isn't it a pity? Send us a message.
Mike, what do you miss most about home?
I miss my 3 boys and my mom and dad.
I miss my wife and my 3-year-old daughter, Jamie Lynn.
Lobster?
Are you happy?
I am now.
I'm Ted. Send us a message. Happy holidays. Send us a message. Please. www.22minutes.com. Sir.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, 1 million people didn't respond to that, but there was over 20,000 letters and messages, and, you know, if anyone could have read them who was sitting around a cabinet table, we wouldn't have sea kings falling out of the sky, I can assure you of that. They were pretty incredible. So thank you very much, and sorry I went over my time. Thanks.